Hello, ma'am. Welcome to Research Circle. I hope I am audible to you.
Yes.
Most welcome, ma'am. I'm making this live on YouTube and Facebook. Also, participant will be joining us via Research Circle app. So there are three platforms where we are running this webinar. So we'll start in 2-3 minutes. I will be introducing you, and then you can start. Meanwhile, you can just check your PowerPoint presentation sharing. So I'm allowing the sharing for you now. So you can do that.
Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. I can see your presentation. Yeah, I can see your video as well. Thank you. Okay, so it's 12 p.m. I guess we can start now. And yeah, participants are still joining with us. Okay, let me start. Welcome to one and all present here. Yeah, I request all the participants, please mute yourself. Yeah, thank you. So a warm welcome to all. Welcome to Research Circle. Today we have gathered here for an exclusive webinar on basics of research methodology and manuscript writing. And for this, we have with us our today's expert, Dr. Napalina Bhattasali. She is working as assistant professor and head of information technology department at St. Xavier College, Autonomous, Kolkata, India. She has obtained her PhD in computer science and engineering from University of Calcutta in collaboration with AGH University of Science and Technology, Poland. She obtained her MBA in marketing. She received doctorate of letters, that is D literature, honorary degree in recognition and appreciation of contribution in the field of secured Internet of Things framework. Case study, rural healthcare in India, based on the field work at the remote villages of Belbam, Southern Bird, from IEU, Maldives, working for SARC countries to eradicate poverty and empowering economics. She received several national and international awards in teaching and research excellence category like Global Outreach Research Award as a young researcher, prestigious IRDP Award for Teaching and Research Excellence, National Award of Excellence. She has many years of experience in academic. She teaches various courses in post-graduation, doctoral, and industry level on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and optimization technologies. She is a member of ICM, ISOC, IAENG. Dr. Bhattasali has published widely in well-regarded national and international journals and edited volumes and conference proceedings as well. She has presented the result of her research work at numerous national and international conferences in India and abroad as well. She published Indian and Australian patent. She has delivered a lecture as a keynote speaker, invited speaker, resource person in various national and international events. She has been invited as a resource person in many national and international webinars, seminars, conference, workshops, and so on. She is the editor and the reviewer of many national and international peer-reviewed journals like IEEE, InterScience. She has already research collaboration with Bangladesh, Poland, and Azerbaijan. So without wasting much time, let me welcome Dr. Tapalina ma'am. Please continue, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this introduction. Thanks for the invitation also. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are perfectly audible, and I request all the participants, please mute yourself because it may create a disturbance to the speaker. At last, we'll keep the 5 to 10 minute question answer session. Then you're free to ask the questions. Then you can unmute yourself. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So today I am going to give you a brief overview of basics of research methodology and manuscript writing. Although it is a huge domain of discussion and many things to discuss, and within a short time, it is not possible to cover all the tabs, all the things, but we can discuss briefly the basic concepts of research methodology and manuscript writing. And it is very significant in today's world, especially who are in academics. For them, this is very much important. This is important for the students, research scholars, professors. So this topic is very much important in today's world. When I'm going to this topic, first we need to know that what is research. All of you have the idea about the research. And normally what we need to do, in academics, the teaching can only be effective, can be improved if we can make it the research based. Otherwise, if we can consider the syllabus 10 years back, 15 years back, there is no improvement. In that case, there is no progress. So whatever we need to do, we need to consider research in each and every field in our life, those who are in academics. So basically, if we consider the definition of research, mainly we can say this is for the search for knowledge. So what do you mean by knowledge? All of you have the idea, but if we can mention it the technical terms, you know that data means the raw facts, collection of raw facts on the basis of which we cannot take any decision and draw conclusion. But in today's world, the data is very important because you know the data analysis, data analytics, these topics are very important. So what I need to do, what we need to do, data needs to be processed. So when we process the data, when we process the raw facts, then some processed materials will be generated on the basis of which we can take the decision or draw the conclusion. Now, when we apply this information to solve the how type queries, how I can do this, then this becomes the knowledge. So when you want to search this type of knowledge, this becomes the research. And it is a systematic and scientific search for relevant information on a specific topic. Right now, we are considering the research that is interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, anything you can say. This is not that discipline specific. Anywhere you need to do the research. So why this is scientific? That doesn't mean this is related to science, arts, commerce like this. There's no division. Scientific means here, this is the systematic way you need to search something. I cannot search it randomly. Yes, it is my, as according to my wish, I am searching one keyword. That is not like that. So whatever I need to do, we need to process something, we need to follow some steps. So that's why it is known as, it is a systematic and scientific search for relevant information on a specific topic. And obviously there should be some systematic effort to gain new knowledge. And basically what we can say that research is the movement from the known to unknown. So when you consider research, it can be composed into two syllables, re and search. Re means again and again and again, or something new. So when I'm searching something again and again and again, we can also find something new. And the search means obviously, you know, this is to examine closely and carefully something. I want to find out something, I want to search something carefully. And together they form a noun describing a careful systematic study and investigation in any field of knowledge to establish facts. So what is our objective? Our objective is to establish something. So if I want to establish something, I need to do some work. I need to do some research. I need to find something. Accordingly, I cannot say, yes, this is the truth. If I say that this is the truth, I need to establish the fact. And in this way, in that case, we need to consider the research. Now, if we consider the methodology part. So basically, this refers to the methods, techniques, and procedures that are employed in implementing your research plan or design. So systematic way you need to do is when you are considering the PhD or when you want to do some research in your master level or any level, it cannot be abrupt, it cannot be random. So what you need to do, methodology means what? You need to follow some methods, techniques, and procedures. It is not just a lottery that you have published a paper, which has no meaning, no head and tail. So obviously, when you want to do serious research, you need to follow some methods, techniques, and procedures. And that you can employ to implement your research plan, your synopsis, whatever you will submit as PhD proposal also, that must follow some procedures. So that is the methodology. Now, when I'm considering this research methodology, so we need to consider the methods or techniques. So whatever I am doing during my research to establish the fact, so what are the techniques I am using? What are the functions? What are the procedures I am using? These all are under these research methods or techniques. So we can say that research methods or techniques refer to all the methods the researchers use in performing research operations. Now, if we define research methodology, basically this is a science. Again, this is a systematic procedure. Science means not only this is science, this is not for the arts or commerce like this. So a science of studying how research is carried scientifically. That means in a systematic way. How we can study, how we can do the research in the systematic way. That is the main concept behind the research methodology. That's why in your project, in your thesis, you need to include this topic, this section as research methodology. That is very important. And also in case of PhD, you have the coursework for research methodology, which has the high impact. So a way to systematically solve the research problem by logically adopting various steps. So all the steps you need to follow, obviously, based on the different disciplines, the steps may differ slightly, but the basic structure skeleton must be same for all the disciplines. So that's why we need to know, we need to discuss many things about this research methodology. Now, if we consider the research, types of research, different types are there. We can classify it on the basis of these three categories, three dimensions. One is application, one is objectives, one is inquiry. So application of the research study, on the basis of which we can divide the research. Based on the objectives, we can divide the research. And based on the inquiry mode employed, based on this, we can also divide the research. So which type of research I'm doing, that also you need to know. So if we can consider it on the basis of application, if your perspective is on the basis of application, then we can divide this research into two types. One is pure research and is applied research. So what do you mean by pure research? Basically, when you consider pure research, basically you can consider the developing and testing theories and hypotheses. So sometimes it may be the challenging one to the researchers, because I can say one example, the pure mathematics, someone is doing PhD in pure mathematics and someone is doing in applied mathematics. So if we can, all the things are of high importance, but the thing is that those who are doing PhD or research work on pure mathematics, their objective is to establish any theorem or to disprove or prove any theorem or this type of things, which are related entirely to the academics level. But it has limited usage for the practical application. And it may not have any practical application, because you know that all the theorems we are using which may not have any application. So basically such work often involves testing of hypotheses containing abstract and specialized concepts that we can do. But nowadays, most encouraging one is the applied research. So government wants something which has this impact on the society. Obviously, you can say, yes, if I am doing pure research, it has no significance on the society. It may have, but it may not have any application. So whatever we are doing, main focus, we need to have this applied research. So most important, most encouraging one is the applied research. Research undertaken in social science is applied. So any social aspects we can apply. Suppose you can apply mathematics in social science. You can apply computer science in the social science, sociology. So these are all the concept of this interdisciplinary projects are there, interdisciplinary research works are there. So these are all the examples of applied research. So nowadays also you need to know the things that if we consider the one discipline, so this is arts, science, commerce, these are the different disciplines. Now we can consider multidisciplinary. So multidisciplinary means what? In my project, one part is from the mathematics and one part is from the computer science. So that is multidisciplinary. We can give the example that multiple disciplines are there in my project. But if we consider interdisciplinary, This interdisciplinary means I want to integrate the concept of mathematics and computer science to give a new idea, or I want to create something from the existing one. I want to modify, I want to edit something from the existing idea. So that is interdisciplinary. And transdisciplinary means what? When no boundary is there. Among the different disciplines, there is no boundary. All the boundaries have been dissolved. So we can apply mathematics in Bengali. We can apply mathematics in history. But there is no difference that this is a part of history, this is a part of mathematics. So that is the transdisciplinary. Nowadays, you know that most of the things, most of the research works are there with the interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary concept. So you need to know, and also obviously what I am doing, it must have some impact. I am doing something which has no significance, no one will study this one. So it has no effect, obviously, because you know that nowadays number of PhD works are going on which has no effect. So that's why most focus must be given to the research work which has some impact. So applied research, when I'm considering that research undertaken in social science is applied, findings being designed either for use in understanding a phenomena or issue or to bring a change in the program or situation. So whatever your research, that must have some impact on the society. Now, if we want to divide the research on the perspective of these objectives, so we can divide it into descriptive, correlational, explanatory, exploratory. So what is descriptive? What is this descriptive research? The main purpose is to describe what is prevalent with respect to the problem under study. And in these, the main characteristics is that researcher has no control over the variables. He or she can report what has happened or what is happening. Mainly, we can consider this descriptive research for social science and business research. So you can see which type of research can be considered under this descriptive research. Case study may be there. So accrual of detailed information from an individual. So some applications are there, some individual cases are there on the basis of which I am doing my research. I want to study on something on Sundarban. So like this. So this is a particular case. And on the basis of this, I want to apply my knowledge. And obviously I need to follow the particular steps, but this is case specific. So this is also under this descriptive research. Some survey work I want to do. So what are these cross-sectional can be possible? So survey work can also be divided into two types. One is cross-sectional and is longitudinal. So when you consider cross-sectional, status of various groups at a given point in time. So within this time, I want to consider different types of groups. And I want to do some survey. So suppose I want to find out the business progress of different retail companies during this COVID period. So this is also one thing like cross-sectional, so particular time limit I have mentioned, time bound, where I want to find out, I want to do some comparative work analysis. I want to study the status of all these companies during this time. And longitudinal means what? I want to study a particular company's performance or transaction report or sales reports, pre-COVID era, post-COVID era, during COVID. So status of a given group at various points of time. That is the longitudinal survey. So two types of survey I can do. Either I can take the different types of groups, different groups for a particular time frame, and I can compare the performance. And also I can compare the performance of a particular group for different time periods. So accordingly, we can divide the survey work. And these all are under the descriptive research. So obviously, these are the examples of descriptive research, attitudes of students towards quality teaching. Strategies put in place by a company to increase workers' productivity. And effects of living in a house. So these are all under the descriptive research. And one variation of, or one contrasting part of this descriptive research is experimental research. What is this? This involves a direct assessment of how one variable influences another. And this allows the establishment of causality. That means, what is the cause? I want to find out. I want to select the variables in this way. So some are independent variables, some are dependent variables. That you need to know, that you need to identify. So basically, these independent variables are the cause. which can create some causes. And accordingly, I can do my research. So all extraneous variables must be held constant while a single variable is manipulated and the effect measured. So I know the cause I need to understand, I need to analyze the effect. So that can be done through number of variables. And in experimental research, mainly the experimental research are based on this quantitative work. Sometimes some qualitative works are also there. But mainly the thing is that here the variables are there and I can define that what are my variables, what are my metrics on the basis of which we can do the measurement. I can do the analysis, but which is not possible in case of descriptive research. Other types is correlational. So what is the type of correlation? Correlational, its aim is to discover or establish the relationship between two or more aspects of a situation. So if we consider the example, the effect of the home environment on education. But if I want to find out the impact of COVID on education sector or school education, so what is the relation between these two? Is there any direct impact? So that we can consider through this correlational research. Some examples we can give: the relationship between stressful living and incidence of heart attacks. That is also a thing that this, what is the relation between these? So is there any direct impact of stressful living on this heart attack probability? That we can find out. Impact of technology on the language classroom. Impact of domestic violence on adolescents. So these are all we can consider under this correlational research. Another type we can say that is the explanatory. So what do you mean by this explanatory research? It attempts to clarify why and how there is a relationship between two aspects of situation or two aspects of the phenomenon. And this type of research will try to explain, for example, how the home environment affects children's level of academic achievements, as I mentioned. So what is the impact on the mind of the children? What is the impact of this home environment? Is it directly affect this one of the children's academic achievement? If it is so, then you need to explain why and how. What is the level of impact and how is it possible? All the things you need to explain under this explanatory research. So examples we can give under explanatory research: how does domestic violence impact adolescent learner? Why do some schools adopt a program while others do not? How does technology facilitate learning? So as I mentioned, during COVID also we can learn this type of things. And this type of, if your research work can answer this type of question and it attract maximum number of audience, and there are some future works also, then your research is one sort of, up to a certain level, it is successful. So that you need to know while you are considering the research in this level, in this domain. Now, if we consider exploratory, another type is exploratory. So this is when a study is undertaken with the objective either to explore an area where little is known or to investigate the possibilities of undertaking a particular research study. I need to explore. I have not so much idea, or some domains are there where not so much research works are there. So I want to find out this. I want to unlock this portion. So if I want to do this type of work, then this type of research work is known as exploratory research work. We need to explore. When a study is carried out to determine its feasibility, it is also called a feasibility study or a pilot study. So sometimes what happens, you can see that you can select a domain where maximum works are there. So what is your objective? You need to find out the research gaps from these existing works. And accordingly, you can set your research goal, scope of your work, because you cannot solve all the research questions. What are the questions you can target? And accordingly, you can do your work. But if we consider the exploratory research works, there are not so much research works. I need to unlock this one. Obviously, I cannot unlock anything from scratch. I need to do some study. Without the study, I cannot do this thing. But whatever I need to do, I need to study, I need to do the trial and error method. If I want to unlock some domain, I need to find out the trial and error method. I can design some protocol, some prototype. And accordingly, I can run the prototype and I can find out, okay, it can work. This is actually the concept. We can also find out the patent, from where we can find out the concept of patent. So something that is a novel work. Two types of research can be done. Either you can do it from the scratch means Some innovation should be there. Otherwise, obviously, if you are doing the research work, you can find out some gaps from the existing work and accordingly you can do. So that you need to know that which type of research work you want to do. Now, if we consider it from the perspective of inquiry mode, how we can divide the research. So we can divide the research into two types. One is structured approach, and another is unstructured approach. So what do you mean by the structured approach? Structured approach is also known as quantitative research. So it uses some measurements, numerical values, sample size you need to select. What should be your sample size? And you need to analyze the data using some statistical tools. Now, suppose you have, I will also come to the point of data, but just I'm mentioning this thing that if we are thinking about the data, huge amount of data are there, but you cannot collect the data. Suppose you want to collect the data for your research. You cannot collect the data for infinite time. You must have a certain limit. So you need to decide what should be your sample size, what should be your number of respondents when you want to collect the data through questionnaire. So that's why when I want to do this using this approach, this is the structured approach. And normally what we can do, we can follow the quantitative research. Why quantitative research? Also, I'll come the qualitative and quantitative part. Quantitative means I want to find out, I want to say something with the measurement. Suppose I am mentioning that this student is very good in the classroom. So this is my opinion. What is the logic behind this? So I need to prove something behind this concept, that why I am saying that this student is very good in my class. So if we can give it the accurate result, yes, his performance is better than others. Like if I can prove this one, if I can mention this, each class, this is his attendance. He has the 100% attendance and he answered 100% questions. So like this. So these are the some proofs that I need to establish a fact quantitatively. And this is also applicable to make any decision accurately. So study is classified as quantitative if the researcher seeks to quantify the variation in a phenomenon and if information is gathered using quantitative variables. So this is the structured approach. Now, if we consider the unstructured approach, basically, as I mentioned in general, each part has the variation, but if we can consider it in general way, unstructured approach is to inquiry is classified as the qualitative one. So basically, unstructured means the qualitative one. As I mentioned something, this is my opinion. Or her behavior is very good. I can mention this. So obviously some research works are there, but there are some no mathematical calculation, no numeric representation is there. So a study is classified as qualitative if the purpose is primarily to describe a situation, phenomenon, problem, or event. And the information is gathered through the use of variables or measured on qualitative measurement skills. And if analysis is done to establish the variation in the situation or problem without quantifying it. So mainly when you consider small sample size or basic level of research, then we can think the qualitative way. But nowadays, actually it is recommended if you have something to do in qualitative manner, it will be better if you can follow hybrid approach. Hybrid approach means some parts you must use the qualitative approach. Then obviously you need to consider the quantitative approach. Both must be there to establish your fact. Some variations are again there, but normally it is recommended to, if you want to use the unstructured approach or qualitative approach, you can apply the hybrid approach where both qualitative and quantitative measurements are there. Now, qualities of a good research. So if we consider qualities of a good research, there are many points, but we can consider few. So research must address important relevant issue. So whatever I am doing right now, I am doing on research. Already this fact has been established 5 years back. So what is the utility of doing this research? Yes, obviously, whatever done before 5 years, that I can study, I can go through this work, I can find out some loopholes. Or I can find out the future work mentioned in this report, in this project. And accordingly, I can do my work. But if I can simply copy this work, what is the meaning of this research work? So obviously, research must address an important and relevant issue. And it is undertaken to increase knowledge. So those who want to do the research, those who have idea about research, that is okay. Who wants to do the research, because for academic progress, it is very important. Also for industry, it is also required. But mainly for the academics, it is very important. So you need to know why you want to do the research, not only for promotion, not only for this your further study, I need to complete my PhD, no. So whatever you need to do, you need to know that what you want to do. So it is undertaken to increase knowledge and have some beneficial implications. And it will also have relevance to the time, place, and population of the study. So that is very important. Now, if we consider qualities of a good research, basically research is the process for collecting data, analyzing the data, and interpreting something from this result, so that I can give the answer of this question. Whatever the research questions I found for my thesis or for my research work, for my project, I am capable to give the answer of this question. And not only that, I am mentioning that yes, my research work is very good compared to the others. I cannot say like this. I need to prove whatever I am doing. I need to prove, I need to give the full proof of this, that yes, my work is 5% accurate or 99% accurate compared to this work. Otherwise, if I can mention, okay, my research work is very good compared to all the researchers, so this has no effect. So but to qualify it as research, the process must have certain characteristics. What are the characteristics? It must be the logical one. Logic must be there. Rigorous, that means you need to strictly follow the rules, some methods, and it should be a systematic one, as we have mentioned that all the steps you need to follow. Step by step you can go. You cannot go directly from data to conclusion part or introduction to suppose you want to write your PhD thesis or master's thesis. So you have mentioned your introduction part, you have already written your introduction part, then you have mentioned your conclusion. How can you write the conclusion? Because you have no idea what will be the conclusion of your work when you are writing the introduction. Introduction writing is, suppose you are starting just your work, you are at that level. It's introductory level. If you are at the introductory level, how can you write the conclusion part? So that's why it should be the systematic one and valid and verifiable. Whatever you are proposing, whatever you are doing, that should be the valid one, and it should be verified by the third parties, and there should not be any biasness. So suppose you have selected one research guide or reviewers who blindly mention, yes, your research work is very good. So this is not the ethical one in research. So whatever you are doing, that should be the valid and verifiable one. And it is the empirical. Why? Because if I am saying this year research work is very good, so it has no meaning. Some proof must be there. That's why if we can represent it empirically, people can say, okay, this research work is very good. And critical. Obviously, whatever the research you are doing, how good you are in research, you always need to know the feedback. This feedback may be good, this feedback may be bad. So one thesis or one research work, that's why reviewer comments is very important. So you need to have this, you need to accept this critical comments, and accordingly you can improve. So all the things are included under this good research. Now, if we consider systematicness, because it is very important for any research, mainly we are following these few steps. First, we need to identify the problem. What is the problem? Because there are a number of problems in a particular topic. So it is not possible for me to cover all the problems, to solve all the problems. So what are the problems you want to identify, and what is the relevance of it? Reviewing the literature, what are the existing works? So that you need to study well. Then you need to collect the data. Data may be collected by yourself, or you can take the help of some existing data. Then you need to analyze the data. And finally, you need to interpret the result. When you do the analysis, you will get some results. And from this result, you can interpret the data and you can draw the conclusion to make the final decision or to establish some generalized facts. So this is basically, these are the basic steps when you want to follow the systematic research. So you can also see this research process. So this is the review the available literature. Now, first, when I want to do this one, because this is the iterative process, you need to find some publishing work. That means what are the published work. So that is the published findings. You can first consider what we have, what are the publications we have. There are number of online resources are there. You can search your library or online resources are there. From there, you can search the publication on your topic, then review the available literature. And from mainly when I'm doing this literature review, that doesn't mean only you are writing in your thesis that according to this is the fact. According to this is the fact. What does this mean? If you simply mention that this is the author, this one, propose this one. So it has no meaning. So this literature survey has no meaning. What you need to do, you need to mention that what he has done, what he has proposed, and what he has not proposed. So that is very important when you study the literature, and accordingly you need to write the literature survey. The success of literature survey depends on this, that how effectively I can criticize the existing work. That doesn't mean that you always mention that these works, all works are bad. No, but some loopholes maybe there are, some problems maybe there are. Also, if there are some good things, you can also mention that. Normally, what you need to do when you select the relevant literatures, you need to find out, you need to mention both goods and bads. So goods are okay. Now from bads, we can find out that, okay, whether we can focus on this. Can you solve this part? So these are the things you need to find out. From this, I can find out the research gap. And from this research gap, we can find out the scope of your work. And when I'm finding the scope of my work, then I can formulate a question. A question or two questions, but you cannot mention all the questions. Now, select an appropriate research design. So that we also can do. What are the steps? What are the main steps we can follow? Select an appropriate research design we can do. And then collect relevant data. So which type of data are required for me, and what should be the size of my data? If I think about the questionnaire, then what is the thing that how many respondents should be there? After that, I can start my analysis. And then after doing the analysis, we can interpret the findings, and then we can publish the result. So this is an iterative process that you need to consider in the research process part. And always you need to follow this iterative process. Obviously, I may fail. It is not the thing that in the first step I may make success. If I will fail, in that case, what I can do? Again, I can repeat the same steps. So suppose you can see when you will do your PhD for 5 years. Now, what you are studying at the beginning of your first year, after doing some literature survey, when you do some work, you can see after 2 years, there are number of works are there. So I can again repeat this process. If first one is not successful, I can again repeat the thing. I can find out the latest publication. Because each time, reviewers also recommended this one, that you need to study, obviously you need to study the previous works, but try to focus on the recent works. What is going on around you? So if you are not successful in your first year of PhD, then and after the 2 years have been spent, so there's nothing to worry. So what you need to do, you need to start from this again, the same step you need to follow. Then what you need to do, already the steps, there are number of literatures after 2 years. Try to read this one, and accordingly you can repeat your steps. So that's why you need to have the patience during the research. It is very much needed to keep the patience with you and follow these iterative steps. Now, normally this research process, I can mention it as the 8-step model. What are the major steps here? Steps in planning a research study. First, as I mentioned, the step 1, formulating a research problem. But yes, this is very common problem for the researchers. Suppose I have formulated a research problem at the first year of my research work. Now, when I'm doing something, I am doing my work parallelly, you can see some others have already formulated this research problem and they have already solved this problem. So how you can recover from it? So at that time, what you need to do, that's why you need to be very careful, you need to be very conscious of what is going on around you. So if someone has already proposed whatever you're thinking, or what do you want to suggest? So what you can do, you can try to find out loopholes of his research work or her research work. And from this, you can extend something, you can propose something new. So this thing can be possible. Next is conceptualizing a research design. You must have the idea, so you need to conceptualize. You must have the concept, so accordingly you can plan the blueprint of your research work. Then you need to think in the next step, constructing an instrument for data collection. So whether it is the interviews, questionnaire, or you want to build some softwares, some prototypes, some apps. So how you will collect the data? That may be the case that you are designing on apps, mobile apps through which you can collect the data. That can also be possible. So you need to know, you need to identify that what is the method, because in all cases or in all disciplines, questionnaires are not sufficient. If you are thinking about this something like science and technology where the questionnaires are not sufficient. If I'm thinking about the management related discipline, in that case, questionnaire is okay. So different disciplines have different requirements. Accordingly, you need to find out that what is the instrument you can consider for your data collection. Now selecting a sample, what should be your sample size? Because you cannot take all the data during your analysis part. So that you need to find out. Normally what happens if you can consider the science and technology part or something related to computer science like domain. So what you can do, we can design a prototype of a particular model and we can collect the data from this prototype. So if this prototype can successfully work, that means I can deal with the huge amount of data also. Obviously some problems may be there, but you know the simulation concept is the simulation means I can just dry run few parts, or I can create an environment, artificial environment of my research work, and I can do the experiment. So if the simulation is successful, then I can go it for the long run. Now the question is there that nowadays simulation is not very encouraged because we can see there are heterogeneous data. Sometimes you can see in your lab environment, simulation can work successfully. But when I'm thinking it about the real life, huge amount of heterogeneous data are there. This may not work successfully. That's why nowadays reviewers want the real life data. So in your experiments, if you can show the analysis part with the real life data, so it will work. So that you need to know that selecting a sample and then you can write the research proposal. After that, when I consider the steps in conducting a study, so I have collected all the data, but you need to know how much data you want, what are the types of data you want, and you need to process the data. Because while I'm collecting the data, some garbage values are also there. Garbage value means unwanted values, some missing values, some values which are not supported by my system. So these type of data needs to be filtered out. And you need to process data, you need to take the process data. So after doing this, you can write the research report. So up to this level, you cannot write your research report. Up to when you come to this point, then you can start your writing. Obviously, you cannot write the analysis part, but you can start your writing. But before that, you have no idea. So this thing you need to know when you want to research proposal, you can write. But when I'm thinking of the research report, the structure, the research methodology steps, then I can do it after processing the data. So already we discussed so many things about the types of data or data part. Mainly, as we mentioned, the data can be classified into two types, that is qualitative data and quantitative data, because research methodology is very much important and very much related with this data. Now, if we consider the qualitative data, those who have the experience in working with the SPSS or any other softwares, you may have the idea about this, that these are the basic variations. When you're thinking about the qualitative data, the variables are actually the attributes. Attributes means characteristics of one entity or object. Entity or object means what? Anything which has independent existence. So the main thing is that when you're thinking about the variable, how can I define the variable, or what are the variables that I can use in my research? Mainly you need to know that what are the objects or what are the entities you are considering for your research work, and what are the characteristics of this entity. These are the attributes. And based on these attributes, you can find out attributes or characteristics. Based on this, you can find out you can mention the variables. So suppose I'm doing something based on the gender related study. So when you're considering the gender related study or something like this, I want to find out the buying pattern of the college students. So if I want to find out the buying patterns of the college students, so mainly my target audience is college students. Now buying pattern is the main main theme I want to identify. And obviously, what are the major important metrics or variables in this case? Age. Yes, you can say in the college level, age is a particular limit, within a particular limit. Obviously, this is so. But also when you are considering the college students, mainly the college university students, so up to a certain limit is there. And this gender is very important. So these things you need to identify for your requirement. What are the most important things? So is there any direct relation between the age and the gender? So this type of identifying this type of question, you need to identify the variables and you need to categorize the variables. If you use the SPSS or any other softwares are also there, but in SPSS it is easier for the thing for social science. It is very important, or the this type of management related disciplines. This is very important. So you can see how we can classify with the nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio types of data. So when you are considering the nominal data, mainly the gender, men, women, we can consider, or your eye color, your hair color, that means categorization. If I want to use any attribute or feature for categorization, this is known as the nominal data or nominal variable. So this is one thing you need to, if I want to categorize. In my research group, senior, junior, two types of stakeholders are there. Two types of team members are there. So this is the categorization. One is junior group, another is senior group. This is the nominal type. Now, if I want to find out that some ratio, you can see A, B, C. So if I want to find out, if I want to give the rank in to my team members, so I can do it with the help of this ordinal data. These are all the part of qualitative one. Now, if I want to consider the quantitative data, normally quantitative data can also be categorized into two types, discrete and continuous, as you know. Discrete, we can say that which has no specific sequence, what I can say, a particular number, and which is fixed for a particular time. That means number of rooms in your flat, number of workers in a company. Yes, obviously you can say that number of employees may be changed after a certain time. But for a particular time span, your number of employees are same, number of students are same. So these are the discrete data, but there is no direct sequence. Suppose in my company, I have right now 100 employees. That doesn't mean that next time I have only 101 employee or 102 employee. I may have 150, 200, or I may have 90 employees. So this is the discrete data. But continuous means the sequence must be there, the height of the children. So this type of the speed of the car. So one by one, I need to increase the speed. So this is the continuous type of data. Now, again, while I'm considering the data, we also need to know the classification based on the structure of the data. So we can divide the data into structured, semi-structured, and unstructured. So what is structured? Mainly, if we can represent the homogeneous data in a tabular format like rows and columns, or some labels are there, then these are the structured data. You can see the Google Sheet, numerical data are there, which has a particular sequence. You can also see that the key values, ID, in your database. So some sequence must be there. That is the structured data, which is easy to identify. So basically, this supports the structured framework, and columns and rows are based on the preset parameters. Preset parameter means suppose this roll number is the preset parameter for the student. Employee ID is the preset parameter for the employees. So based on this, it can be sorted. So this is the structured data. Now, what is unstructured data? Unstructured data means there is a heterogeneous data. Some audio files are there, video files are there, and heavyweight data, which cannot be directly maintained like this sequence. So videos, images, speech, sound. If we consider Facebook, in Facebook, huge amount of data and different types of data are there. So how they can maintain this? So this is the unstructured data. So when you will do your project, you need to know that which type of data you need to handle. whether the structured data is sufficient one. If you are doing the data science project, obviously you need to handle the unstructured data. You need to know how to handle the unstructured data. Now, in between, there is one type of data that is semi-structured data. So if we consider semi-structured data, these are basically loosely organized into categories with the meta tags. Just like you can see nowadays in Twitter, number of hashtags options are there. So tweets organized by hashtags, emails by inbox and draft. Some folders are organized by the topic. So if these type of things are there, which can maintain a sequence, but this sequence is not exactly like the structured data sequence. Some sequence must be there. So this is in between the structured data and unstructured data. So if you can consider the difference between the structured data and unstructured data, the basic difference, you can see the structured data can be displayed by rows and columns. Normally, we can represent the data in tabular format, which is known as also the relational database. So if in the structured data can be displayed in rows and columns, and relational database, that means it can be represented in tabular format. But unstructured data cannot be displayed in tabular format. And normally in case of structured data, we deal with the numeric values, text type data, dates. So this type of data, one sort of data are there. But when you consider the unstructured data, we need to follow images, audio, video, different types of data are there. Now, most of the companies generate unstructured data. That's why it is mentioned that it is estimated that 80% of enterprise data are unorganized data, unstructured data. And that we need to handle. So if we want to do any real life project, we need to be familiar with the unstructured data handling. And it is mentioned that enterprise data, 20% of the data, 20% of enterprise data are structured data. Now, obviously, structured data requires less storage, whereas unstructured data requires huge storage. That's why the concept of cloud, nowadays Google Drives, a number of drives, number of cloud storage are there, which are required to maintain the data. And structured data is obviously, it is easier to manage, and it can be handled with the legacy solution or traditional solutions. But unstructured data is difficult to maintain using this legacy software or legacy solutions or traditional software. Now, already I mentioned the difference between primary data and secondary data once, but again, I'm mentioning when you will do it for the social science research or like this, you need to know clearly the difference between the primary data and secondary data. Obviously, again, I mentioned this is not only limited to social science. If we consider the computer science also in that case, suppose primary data, I have designed one app. Through this app, I am collecting the data because I know that what are the data I need. Accordingly, I have designed my apps. Now you can see you do not want to design the app, mobile app, or you have no idea about designing the mobile app. Then you need to depend on someone who have already designed the data through mobile app, because some existing data are already there in online platform. So when you use this data, these data are based on their requirements. So what is the problem here? Sometimes you may not match their requirements with your requirements. Sometimes what is also the problem when you are doing the comparative analysis? I know that what are the metrics I need to consider to my analysis part. But when I want to do it some existing works, whether they have followed the same data size, same metrics, so otherwise, how can I compare my work with others' work? So that's why when you want to do some comparative research work, you need to know that whatever, first you need to know what are the existing literatures you want to select, how relevant these literatures are with your work, and what are the metrics or what are the variables they have selected, what is the sample size, and how much compatible this data set with your requirement. So according to the collection of data, data can be classified into primary and secondary. So primary data, I can say that collected for first time through personal experience or evidence. This is basically the raw data or first-hand data. And mode of assembling information is costly, because as I mentioned, if I want to consider the questionnaire or if I want to design the mobile app, it will take my time. If I cannot design mobile app, I can hire someone to design the mobile app. Then it also becomes the costlier one. If I can think about the questionnaire designing, I can do the questionnaire design, but I need to know the respondents. I'm distributing my questionnaire to the respondents who will respond. Some biasness may be there, because if I distribute it to my relatives, my colleagues, in that case, some biasness may occur. And if we can do it blindly, if we can do the distribution blindly, sometimes what happens, some questions may be there which respondents do not want to reply. So that's why these are the few challenges while I'm collecting the primary data. And these are mostly collected through observations, physical testing, mail, questionnaires, surveys, personal interviews, telephonic interviews, case studies, and focus groups. But data collection sometimes becomes a challenge for this type of primary data. Now, what are the challenges for secondary data? And you can also consider the hybrid data. Some data can be collected through primary mode and some can be collected through secondary mode. So second-hand data, secondary means second-hand data which already collected and recorded by some researchers. So in that case, method of collecting the data or gathering the data is affordable or readily available. It can save the cost and time. But the problem is that, as I mentioned, that what the data are assembled based on some requirements of other researchers. These requirements may not be matched with your one. So may not meet recent research purpose or may not be accurate when I'm dealing with this secondary data. So which type of data will work for your research, that you need to identify. And already I mentioned this discrete data and continuous data. So you can also know that discrete data is countable data that can only take certain values, but they are fixed values. And it includes discrete variables that are finite, numeric, countable, and non-negative integers, like 5, 10, 15, these are the things. So number of teeth, number of keys, these are the things. For a particular time period, this is fixed. And there's no particular ratio, sequence, these matters are not there. These are the fixed values. But if we consider continuous data, that is measurable data, that can take place any value. So my age, whatever my age today, that will be changed next year. So in the sequence, it will be changed. So that is the example of continuous data. My weight can be increased or decreased. So these are all the type of continuous data. Now, when I am doing the data presentation, normally what are the steps we can follow? Because you know that in research, presentation is also very important. That's why in PhD also you need to give the presentation, you need to face the viva. So how you can present? Suppose you have done everything. You have done a good research work, but you cannot present your work. You cannot convince your work to others. Then it has no effect. So how you can present, how efficiently you can present your work, that is also very important. Normally, when you are considering the data presentation, two types of statistical presentation we can consider. One is graphical one is numerical one. So graphical presentation means we look for the overall pattern and find out something odd. Just like this, I'm not going to any subject details, but just I'm mentioning some concepts are there, clustering. So suppose I want to make some clusters based on my data, collected data. So few data are there which may not be included in any one of the clusters. So this is the odd one, odd data set. So when I will deal with this type of clusters for my analysis part, I need to filter this odd data. You may have the experience in school life, those who have not much idea in research or those who are the beginners, when you need to draw the graph in the graph paper. So some points are there through which I can draw the straight line. Or sometimes some points may not be included within the straight lines. And some may be around the straight lines, and there may be the huge difference in the points. Data points may be not close to the straight line. So these odd points, which are not very close to the straight line, these are the outliers. So these points should be removed from your data set before it needs to be processed. And this is also known as outlier. So that is also known as data cleansing or data filtering or outlier removal. So these are the few things you need to know. Also, when I'm dealing with the data visualization, because in any project, any research, you need to visualize the data. You need to present your data in such a way, because sometimes what happens, reviewers may not have enough time or may not have the patience to read all the things. So they want to find out the exact result. So as much as possible, you can make this your paper attractive one. Attractive one is not means using only the false data. Only colors are there in your graph. It has no effect. So no, something solid should be there. But whatever you have, you need to be present in proper way. So then you need to know which type of graphs are suitable to represent your result. Because you also need to know that all the graphs are not suitable for all types of data or all types of variables, better to say. So if we consider MS Excel, because Excel, I think most of the people have the idea about Excel or any other softwares, you know the different types of visualization charts or graphs are there. If we can consider for simple example, that bar chart, pie chart, these are mainly used for the categorical variables. As we mentioned, the nominal variable. Now, histogram, stem, leaf, box plot, there are several variations of the charts. These are mainly used for numerical variables. So when you will send, when you will represent, when you will use the chart to visualize your data, to show the result graphically, you must have the idea that which chart is suitable for your work. You cannot include any chart for this to display your result. Now, how to select a research problem? So basically, you need to consider your personal experience. Some theories may be there, some observations may be there, some contemporary issues you need to consider, and engagement with the literature. You cannot do something scratch. Obviously, you can propose something from scratch, but whatever you need to do, you need to study the thing, that whatever, whether there is any work or not. Accordingly, you can proceed. Accordingly, you can solve the problem. So what is a research problem? A research problem in general refers to some difficulty which a researcher experiences in the context of either a theoretical or practical situation and wants to obtain a solution for the same. So whatever the thing, whatever the literature you have, whatever the theory, whatever the knowledge you have some problems that you cannot solve before your research. Right now, you want to solve it in systematic manner. So you need to frame your research problem with a problem statement. That is also very important for your thesis. How you write your problem statement, that is very important. And why are research questions important? Well-crafted questions guide the systematic planning of research. And now suppose you mention in the problem statement 5 problems, but actually you cannot solve 5 problems in your report. So you need to you need to design the well-crafted question. Based on this, your success of your research design depends. Now, statement of problem, how we can consider the 3 criteria of good problem statements. A problem should be concerned with relation between 2 or more variables like age, gender, or sex, like this. And it should be stated clearly and unambiguously in a question form. And it should be amenable to empirical testing. So whatever the question will form, it should be set in such a way so that it is eligible for the empirical testing. And another important thing is for the hypothesis. So hypothesis is a tentative solution of a problem. 2 types of solution can be possible. One is you can do some study, you can do some research work, you can design a model, and accordingly you can do the analysis. Otherwise, you can solve the problem on the basis of hypothesis. So hypothesis is a tentative solution of a problem. Basically, the research activities are planned to verify the hypothesis and not to find out the solution of the problem, to seek an answer of a question. And researchers always plan or formulate a hypothesis in the beginning of the problem. So whatever you will do, you need to follow this one. You need to formulate the hypothesis, then null hypothesis is there. Now what is how we can nullify the hypothesis? So accordingly you can work. So in some research work, the foundation of hypothesis is very important. Now if we consider the meaning of hypothesis, the word hypothesis is made up of 2 Greek roots, hypo and thesis. Hypo means tentative or subject to the verification, and thesis means statement about solution of a problem. So what is the possible solution of my problem? That I can propose, and accordingly I can verify this one, whether this is possible or not. So in this way, I can also solve my research question. And the word meaning of the term hypothesis is a tentative statement about the solution of the problem. Tentative solution, not the exact solution. And it offers a solution of the problem that is to be verified empirically and based on some rationale. And it can also be designed to express the relationship between the variables. If your question is more descriptive or explorative, generating a hypothesis may not be appropriate. As I mentioned, that for all the research work, hypothesis may not work properly. But if this is the nature of your question, a hypothesis can add to your research. That means to express the relationship between the variables. In that case, you can design the hypothesis. But if we want to find out some case study based work or survey work, or I want to explore something, I want to propose something novel, I want to propose something from scratch, in that case, this hypothesis will not work. Now, formulation of objectives. When we want to consider the formulation of objectives, basically, we can divide these objectives into two parts. One is main objective and this sub-objectives. So it informs the reader what you want to attain through this study. And it is very important to clearly use the words in such a way so that it can clarify the meaning. Because you know that when you submit any research paper to the reviewers, mainly your challenge is first 2 or 3 pages to attract the reviewers. If they lost the interest while they will read your first page or second page, your paper will not be accepted because they will not go through your paper. So convincing your reviewer, it is very important, and that's why you need to present your work. You need to present your work in such a way that first 2 or 3 pages are very important. Suppose you are writing so many things in your research paper, it will not be accepted. So whatever you will do, you need to know, you need to present your work systematically, you need to convince the reviewer so that he or she will go through the end of your pages. Now, the objectives should start with the words like to determine, to find out, to ascertain, to measure, to explore, like this. And the wording of objectives determines the type of research, whether it is descriptive, correlational, experimental, or many more. And the type of research design you need to adopt to achieve them. So that's why setting proper research objective is very important. Next is what is literature review? Obviously, we mentioned too many things, but again, I'm mentioning the word literature in research methodology refers to the knowledge of a particular area of investigation of any discipline that may include theoretical, practical, and research studies. And review means to organize the knowledge of the specific area of research to evolve an edifice of knowledge to show that his study would be an addition to this field. So mainly what I need to do, as I mentioned, you need to criticize. That's why it is also one type of activities, important activities in academics, book review. Because whatever the content you need to criticize, if it is good, you need to mention that, and you need to do this criticism, you need to criticize not blindly. That means that it should be fair enough. So whatever good, you need to mention this good, whatever bad, you need to mention this one. So that's why literature review is also very important for the background of your research work. Data collection, if we can consider, it is extremely important because the conclusion level depends on how you have collected the data and how you have processed this one. And the choice of the procedure, how you have collected the data, that depends on the objective and the design of the study. So which type of data I will collect and what should be the size of this data. And already I mentioned the type of research data, primary and secondary, and it is mainly research is mainly categorized into qualitative and quantitative one. So this thing is already known to you. Quantitative means you can say some numeric values should be there, and qualitative means a person's attitude. I mentioned that his behavior is very good in my class. So that is actually the qualitative data. My perception, my feelings. Otherwise, number of student, age, grade, test score, these are all the numeric values. So already I mentioned this primary, secondary data. Now questionnaire, you know that this basically you need to design your questionnaire such a way. This should be straightforward one, and also it should fulfill your requirement. Otherwise, you have arbitrarily designed some questions which has no effect. So it has no meaning. And do not use any ambiguous questions or questions based on presumptions, like guessing. This type of thing should not be there. Whatever you will include in your question, that should be clear enough for the respondents so that they can give proper answer. And when you consider the type of questions in the questionnaire, mainly the closed format questions or closed-ended questions are maybe there. mainly the possible results are there. So that is a multiple choice. So you can select any one of the answer. There is no freedom that you can write your answer according to your choice. Whatever mentioned, whatever the options given to you, accordingly you need to give the answer, you need to select the answer. Open format questions means what? That is your opinion, as I mentioned, that you can write in your own words. What is your feedback about this webinar? Close-ended means good, very good, not satisfied, very satisfied. These are the close-ended questions because only few options are there. You have no other options. But if you have some lines in the form, that what is your opinion about this webinar or any webinar? So you can write according to your opinion, you can write freely. So that is the open-ended questions or open format question. And dichotomous questions, you know that only yes or no are there. So accordingly, you can design dichotomous questions. Do you like the products of this company? Yes or no? Cost-effective services this is the importance question. Extremely important, very important, somewhat important, like this. So these are also based on something like this ordinal values. Likert questions, Likert scale like this, that these products have to improve on quality. Agree, strongly agree, not agree, disagree, strongly agree, anything. So 5 steps, 5 scales will be there. Measurement should be on 5 scales. So as I mentioned, you like the webinar, not agree, agree, strongly agree, like this. So whatever you will give the main options, that should be within the 5 scales. 5 options should be there if you consider the Likert scale. And this is a bipolar question. Bipolar question means what? Some options are there. At the extreme part, that is the efficient one. How would you describe the service of X corporation or any company? In the leftmost side, this is the efficient, positive characteristics, positive impacts, and in the rightmost, this is the negative impacts. And you need to go in between. So if you think efficient, extremely efficient, then you can cross this one. If it is slightly, yes, efficient only, you can select it. Inefficient, completely agree. So this one. So like this. This is the bipolar. That means you can only give answers of 2 extremes. In between, you need to select. Rating scales are also there. How would you rate the services of the corporation? Good, fair, poor, very poor, like this. Now, conceptualizing a research design. So basically what we can say, research design is a procedural plan that is adopted by the researcher to answer questions validly, objectively, accurately, and economically. So already we mentioned this, what is research. So these steps are obviously there. So when you mention this research methodology, when you do this, you need to follow these all the steps. Systematic research process, logical induction or deduction one. Empirical means evidence-based should be there. I cannot say something randomly. Deductive is generalization should be there, and replicable, that means it should follow some methodology. Now I am coming to the point of manuscript writing. So it is very important when you will do your research work. Obviously, you need to do it in systematic way, but also you need to know how you can publish your research work, how you can publish the manuscript. So publishing is one of necessary steps embedded in scientific research process. And what to publish? This is not the thing that there are several resources. I am copying it here. I just changed the title, and there are several paraphrasing because number of softwares, online softwares are there. I am just copying the existing text from the existing literature, and then I am paraphrasing this one, and I am making one manuscript. I have submitted this one. This is not the publication. So what to publish? New and original results or methods, reviews or summaries of particular subject. You can do the review work, obviously. Manuscripts that advance the knowledge and that can add something to the society and the field. So manuscript that advance the knowledge and understandings in a certain scientific fields. If you have these materials, then only you can think about the publishing the material. What not to publish? Reports of no scientific interest, which has no value, out of date work, because so suppose I'm doing something using Visual Basic or any other software, which is obsolete right now almost. So it has no use. So whatever I am doing, that should have some relevance in this current scenario. duplication of previously published work, as I mentioned, incorrect or unacceptable conclusion. So whenever you will write your paper, there should not be any controversy. Try to avoid the controversy in your paper. And you need a good manuscript to present your contribution to the scientific community. That means in your community, not only scientific means science-related community. In your community, you need to present your contribution so that it can be added in your community. And obviously, when you write your manuscript, one thing is very important, that is the language that you are using. Normally, we are using the English. Most of the papers we write in English. Obviously, any other you can use Hindi or any other languages. But if you want to make it global, we can write it in English. But whenever you will write it in English, the language is very important. So try to avoid as much as possible typos. There should not be much typos, spelling errors, grammar errors. If you have many so, reviewers will not get any interest to read your papers. So that's why it is also very important. If you have any problem, if you have any difficulties to write this thing, you can consult any expert who is the English person or English professor. You can consult with him or her. So accordingly, you can take the suggestion, because this structure is very important when you submit your paper, especially for the international editors or international reviewers. And when you are publishing, also you need to know about one thing, that is the impact factor. You can see number of journals are there who are trying to accept the manuscript, but which has not much effect, not much impact. So what you need to do, whatever you will do, whatever you are searching, you need to know that what is the importance of this. So if you think the impact factor is also very important, mainly you know that if you consider the academics, for promotion purpose in UGCKR journal is very important. Publication is UGCKR journal. Otherwise, you can see Scopus, Elsevier, number of highly reputed publishers are there. So I don't say that all the publications should be there in the Elsevier Springer or it will be accepted. But whatever you need to do, you need to select some journals which are suitable for your work. And impact factor is also an important part to consider or select your journal to publish something, or book. So in case of book, we can consider the publisher or editor names, but in case of journal, we can think about the impact factor. So impact factor is basically the average annual number of citations per article published. So if we consider, as for example, in 2008, impact factor for a journal is calculated as follows. A means the number of times articles published in 2006 and 2007, previous 2 years, were cited in index journal during 2008. So in the 2008, we need to find out how many times these articles published in the year 2006 and 2007. That is represented by A. B implies the number of citable items published in 2006 and 2007. So usually articles, reviews, proceedings, notes, not editorials, letter to the editorial, all the things. So how many articles, how many publications are there in the year 2006 and 2007, and how many times the articles cited? So this ratio is considered as the impact factor. So suppose this is the A by B. Impact factor means A by B. So as for example, if there are 600 citations for these 2 years, articles are 300 articles for these 2 years. So your impact factor for this time is 2. So that you need to identify, that you need to know what is the exact meaning of the impact factor. Now questions to answer before you write. Think about why you want to publish your work. Is it new and interesting? Is it a current trend? Have you provided solution to some difficult problems? And are you ready to publish at this point? If all answers are yes, then start preparation for your manuscript. So before writing, before publishing, you need to know, you need to first give answer of these questions. This publication is not only for your promotion, not only for your degree. So whatever you will do, this must have something, it must have some values. So if you have this one, so in that case, you can publish in a good, so that may be the conference, that may be the book, that may be the journal, anything, but you need to find first thing that why you want to publish. So what type of manuscript you can submit? One is full articles, So you have the full articles, you can then submit this one. Some letters or short communication, maybe there's suppose some findings you want to communicate with the community. So that you can also consider. Obviously, there are some review papers, and you can see many journals or many books may not accept the review papers sometimes. But review papers is not directly just like you are copying from other papers and this is my review paper. No, you must have the proper number of existing literatures and then you need to criticize this one. Your comments are very much important for review work. Self-evaluate your work. So suppose you have the manuscript, which type of manuscript it is. Now, suppose you have some existing work. Now you can want to criticize your own work, and accordingly you can publish. You want to publish the next version of your work or future work. You can extension of your work. That also you can do. And when you publish your extended work, that time you can also criticize your previous work. And ask your supervisor and colleagues for the advice on the manuscript type. So that also you can do. Now, if we consider the journal, select best journal for submission. So look at your references. This will help you narrow your choices. So when you will do this, when you have, suppose you have prepared the full manuscript, including the references. Now you can see what are the references, what are the journals they have used, what are the conferences they have targeted before. Accordingly, you can select. Review recent publication in each candidate journal. So whatever the journals you have mentioned in your references, try to find out the recent publication of these journals and find out the trends, the accepted type of articles. And ask yourself the following question. Is the journal peer reviewed? Who is this journal's audience? What is the average time to print? What is the journal's impact factor? And decide, that is very important, decide on one journal at a time. Do not submit to multiple journals. Because different journals have different requirements. So whatever you are formatting, you need to focus on a particular journal or particular book or whatever your requirement. Accordingly, you need to focus on a particular thing. What makes a good manuscript? It contains a clear, useful, and exciting scientific message. Flows in a logical manner that the reader can follow. And when you write, also you need to remember this thing. You should not include too many technical terms in your paper or manuscript. Because suppose I am the third party, I have not much knowledge in technical terms. So I will not get, even the thing is that the reviewer may not know all the terms. This may be possible because one reviewer may not know all the things. It is not possible. So suppose you have used so many terms, which is not very clear to the reviewer. So they will not review, they will not give any good decision. So whatever you will do, the flow should be the clear enough and flows in a logical manner that the reader can follow. And it is formatted to best showcase the material. Best representation is very good. Best representation is required. And it is written in a style that transmits the message clearly. And no ambiguity should be there. And whatever you will do, some solid works must be there. And it is all about the reader. And remember that editors and reviewers are also in this group. That is very important. And writing a good manuscript is not easy. Be prepared to work hard on it. So what you need to do, cherish your work. If you do not take care, why should the journal? So if you think, hey, yes, I have done the work properly, but I can write it in any way. So in that case, although your work is very good, but as you cannot present it properly, your work will not be may not be accepted. And there is no secret recipe for success. So just some simple rules, dedication and hard work you need to follow. And editors and reviewers are all busy. So make things easier to save their time. So make something interesting so that they will get the interest. And presentation is very critical in that case. So the general structure of a full article. What are the things? Title should be there, authors, abstract, keywords, and main text or main body of your article or manuscript. And this main article can be considered as the IMRAD. You need to know IMRAD is basically the general case. I for introduction, AM is the methods, R for results and discussion. So that's why it is sometimes known as the IMRAD. The main text is known as IMRAD. Discussion includes the conclusion part. And after that, you can include the acknowledgement, references, and supplementary material as the annexure or appendix. And when you will write your abstract, because normally in most of the time reviewers read the abstract. So your abstract, writing your abstract is very important, and selecting your keywords are also very important. So whatever you will do, all the works depends on all the efforts depends on these few steps. Now you can write backwards like this, write the following order. First, you can prepare the figures and tables. It is very good to maintain, and it will also save your time as well as it will be the fruitful one. First, you can prepare the figures and tables according to your collection of data and whatever you have done. Then you can write methods, results, and discussion. After writing this, you can write the conclusions. And based on the conclusion, you can prepare introduction. Why introduction is in last time? Because right now you know what is your conclusion, what is your result, what is your interpretation. Accordingly, you need to prepare the introduction in such a way so that it can attract the audience. Because if you write the introduction in a manner which has not so much importance, in that case, they will not get the interest to go to the next step. So that's why these are basically critical part: abstract and title, introduction. These are the critical parts of your research work. That's why what you can do, if you have the honest enough for your research work, first collect the data and prepare all the figures and tables in your research for your research paper. Then try to write the methods, results, and discussion. And finally, the conclusion parts, then introduction, and at the end, the abstract and title should be there. And title should also be something that can convince the reviewer. And each section must have a definite purpose. And when you develop your title, this is your opportunity to attract the reader's attention. And remember that readers are the potential authors who will cite your article. So suppose I want to cite, I want to cite the article, I am going through your paper, but I am not getting interest in your paper. So why I will cite this one? So that is also one thing. Keep it informative and concise. So reviewers will check whether the title is specific and whether it reflects the content of the manuscript. That is also very important. Suppose you have proposed some title which has no relation with your content. So in that case, also your paper will be rejected. Editors hate titles that make no sense or fail to represent the subject matter adequately. So avoid technical jargon and abbreviation as much as possible. As I mentioned, try to avoid the technical terms as much as possible, as well as the abbreviations. And normally do not use any abbreviation in the abstract or also in the title. So you wish to have a readership as large as possible, right? So our target is large audience. Our target is not only for your college group or for your domain or for your team members. So if you want to attract huge audience irrespective of their categories, then you need to make it as simple as possible. But you must have the solid result that you want to establish. And you can discuss with your co-authors if you have multiple authors for your paper. Now, if I come to the abstract part, so consider the advertisement of your article, because you know that marketing entirely depends how you can convince the customers. Suppose you have a good product, but you cannot do the marketing campaign properly. In that case, your product will not be purchased. So this is the thing. Basically, you can consider this abstract as the advertisement of your article or your manuscript. So it should tell the prospective reader what you did and highlight the key findings. So in summarized way, you need to mention this thing so that readers will get the interest. So again, it is mentioned that avoid using jargon and uncommon abbreviations. And you must be accurate and specific. Use words which reflect the precise meaning. A clear abstract will strongly influence whether or not your work is further considered. So as I mentioned, that abstract and introductions are very important to take the decision whether they will go through your paper or not. And follow word limitation. Suppose in your journal or in your book it is mentioned within the 150 words, and you mention it, you have prepared the abstract within the 500 words. So it will not work. So they will they will get the irritation, so they may reject this one. So suppose this is normal cases from 50 to 300, but you always need to follow the norms of the journal or norms of the books, because it is clearly sometimes mentioned it is within 100 to 200 or 250. Accordingly, you need to follow. Yes, obviously, if it is 250, word limit is 250. In that case, it is 260. It doesn't matter. But whatever the thing, suppose that word limit is 250 and you make it as the 500, then it is a matter. Now, next one is you need to select the keywords properly. Basically, these are the levels of your manuscript and critical for searching something, because I want to search through the keywords. I am searching my relevant topic, whether there is any existing literatures or not. So I'm mentioning some keywords. So if you have not mentioned your keywords properly, your work will not be visible to the reader. So these are the levels of your manuscript and critical to correct indexing and searching. Should not be too broad or too narrow. So you need to select the keyword in such a way so it is the recommended that your paper, your manuscript should be visible, link should be visible if readers search for this particular relevant topic. And use only those abbreviations that are firmly established in the field, like DNA, I know. So in that case, there is no need to mention the full form of DNA. This type of short terms you can use in your keywords. But if you mention something, the short term, which is not, people are not very aware about this short term or abbreviation, then do not use this type of keywords in your keywords part. And check the guide for authors, because different books, different journals have different conferences have different requirements. Accordingly, you can follow. Number, level, definition, what are the ranges, how many keywords they want. So accordingly, you can include your keywords. Now, if we come to the introduction part, it has also the chance, you have the chance to convince readers for the importance of your work. So what you need to do inside the introduction part, describe the problem. Are there any existing solutions? What are their main limitations? And what do you hope to achieve? So some generic problems you can focus. Accordingly, you can mention, okay, these type of works are going on, and these are the limitations. I want to focus on these parts. Obviously, you can say then what is the utility of literature survey? Literature survey means you can specifically mention that in this paper, what are the loopholes? And in case of introduction, what you mention, you can mention any global problem that you want to focus relevant to your title. Accordingly, you can mention that what is the problem, whether there is any solution or not, what are their major limitations, and what do you hope to achieve? And provide a perspective consistent with the nature of the journal. So in that case, what you can do, you can read some articles from the journal where you want to submit, so that you can understand the pattern. Some accepted papers you can find out, and then accordingly you can check the format of their representation. Introduce the main scientific publications on which your work is based. Cite a couple of original and important works, including recent review articles. And also, it is good. There is no hard and fast rule, but it is good if you can include some citations from the journal where you want to submit. So they have the idea, reviewers have the idea, or editors have the idea, okay, they have the idea that which type of articles have been published in this journal. So cite a couple of original and important works, including recent review articles. Editors hate references irrelevant to the work. So suppose you have, what you can do, many students may also do this one, that one source file is there. They have directly copied the cited references from this file in their project or in their report. So it has no impact, it has no meaning, because it is not related to your work. It may not be related to your work. So don't do this. So whatever you have done, and the references what are related to your work, which you can cite in your text, in your main text, that only you need to include. And this type of references should be the latest one. Now, pitfalls of the introduction. What are the pitfalls of the introduction? If it is too wordy, too many words you have mentioned, never use more words than necessary. It doesn't mean that you have written many more things. You have explained so many things. It has no impact. And do not turn this section into a history lesson. In that case, readers will lose the interest. So mixed bag of introduction with result, discussion, and conclusion thrown in for good measure. And always keep sections separate to ensure that manuscript flows logically from one section to the next. Because suppose this is also very important, flowing of throughout your paper. Suppose in your introduction, there is no relation or no direct flow between your introduction and literature survey. So it is not very much readable. So whatever you do, there should be a smooth flow between all the sections of your manuscript. And it is better if you can include the summary summary of your work in the introduction part. Because sometimes you can see those conferences who want the extended abstract. They want the abstract in such a way, extended abstract, where you need to mention all the things. What are the problems? What are the types of works you want to find? What are the problems? What are the results? What is the analysis part? What is the interpretation? All the things you can include in your extended abstract, not in abstract, in the extended abstract part. So has the used car salesman feel of oversell. Excessive use of expressions such as novel, first time, first ever, paradigm changing, it has no impact basically. Or efficient, I am proposing one efficient algorithm. What does this mean? How can you define it is efficient one? Who are you to judge this is the efficient one? So you are no one to mention that this, yes, my algorithm is the efficient one. You can mention this, yes, I can prove this is good compared to this, that you can mention. But I cannot mention that my algorithm is the efficient one. Some third parties can mention this, yes, this is the good one or efficient one. Now the method section. So details, all the details should be there, so that a knowledgeable reader should be able to reproduce the experiment. As I mentioned, suppose you mentioned all the things but which are not very clear. Suppose you want to do the comparative analysis with the existing literature. If your method section is clear enough, then I can do the things, I can compare my work with your work. But if it is not clear, how can I compare my work with your work? And how I can do the future work of you? Suppose I want to do the future problems, I want to solve the whatever you mentioned in your future work that I want to do. So if your method is not clear, how I can go through this work? And use references and supplementary materials for previously published procedures. So whatever, suppose you have mentioned one algorithm, you have used one algorithm that already published in some books or magazines or anywhere, then you need to mention the supplementary materials as a proof of this. Do not repeat the details of the established methods, because if it is already published, if your algorithm is already published, don't write the published algorithms or published logic again. You can send the part where it has been published as the supplementary materials to the reviewer. And a general summary with reference is sufficient for this purpose if you have already published this method. And reviewers will criticize incomplete or incorrect description and may even recommend the rejection. So when you will design when you prepare the method section, you need to follow these steps. Now we can come to the result part. Basically, to discuss something, the result is very important and it should be clearly presented. And if you want to mention the data as a proof of your result, you can provide it as the supplementary material, because if it is not possible to, because you know that in the journal normally there is a page limit. So suppose in some cases it is not possible to provide all the data in the main manuscript because of this page limit. So in that case, to provide the proof to the reviewers, you can provide the data, all the data, whatever you have done as a supplementary materials, so that they can recheck and they know that you are honest enough in your research. And do not hide data in the hope of saving it for a later paper. You may lose evidence of support to support your conclusion. So that's why do not hide anything. Whatever you have done, you need to clearly mention it in your work. Use subheadings to keep results of the same type together, so it is easier to review and read. And tell a clear and easy to understand story. So appearance also counts, because how you can present your work, that is also very important. Uncrowded plots. Your plot should be clear enough. 3 or 4 datasets per figure. Well-selected scales, appropriate access level size, symbols, these are all important for the visualization of data, which is clear to read and datasets easy to discriminate. Because you know that normally what we can do in data visualization, we have used the graphics with the color part. But in most of the cases, in most of the books or the journals, it may not be printed in color format. So how your graphs will look like in the grayscale, that you need to know. So whether the data set can be discriminated by this or not, that you need to remember when you will include your figures, when you include your plots. First time you have done it in colored mode, different types of colors, so that it can be easily discriminated. But also you need to remember this thing that it may not be printed in the color format. So if we are using the grayscale or black and white format, in that case, whether the graph can provide the sufficient information, whatever you want to display, that you need to remember. And each photograph must have a scale marker of professional quality on one corner. So quality must be the high one. Suppose you have included many more graphics, but the quality is very poor, resolution is very poor. In that case, it also affects the decision of your manuscript. Use color only when necessary. If defined line styles can clarify the meaning, never use colors or other thrilling effects, because all the times we cannot include color in your manuscript when it will be published. So defined style, defined lines you can use to discriminate the items. And color needs to be visible and indistinguishable when printed out in black and white, as I mentioned. Do not selectively adjust an image to enhance visualization of results. Do not include long, boring tables. And you cannot drag. Suppose the image is very small. Now you are dragging it to make it bigger. Don't do this. Only the image quality will be affected. Now, what the results mean? It is the most important section of your article. Here you get the chance to sell your data. Many manuscripts are rejected because of discussion is weak. And make the discussion corresponding to the result, but do not reiterate the result. You need to compare the results. Compare the published result with yours. So do not ignore work in disagreement with yours, confront it and convince the reader that you are correct or better. So whatever you are doing, you need to clarify clearly whatever you have done, and accordingly, you need to establish your result. You need to discuss it. Whatever you do, you need to make it you need to provide the positive impact of your result. So what are the pitfalls you need to consider? Statements that go beyond what the results can support. You should not include any statements that is beyond your result. Unspecific expressions such as higher temperature at a lower rate. What does this mean? Higher temperature? What does this mean at a lower rate? And my result is more accurate. What does this more accurate means? So quantitative descriptions are always preferred. You can mention my result is, suppose it is the true false things, that false acceptance rate, true acceptance rate. So you need to mention clearly that it is 95%. My accuracy is 95% or 90% or 85%, whatever the percentage. You mention it in the numeric figure. I cannot mention my result is more accurate than others. And sudden introduction of new terms or ideas. You cannot include this one. Too many new ideas is not accepted. Speculations on possible interpretations are allowed, but this should be rooted in fact rather than imagination. So fact must be there in case of research. Check the organization, number and quality of illustrations, logic, and the justifications. So revision of results and discussion is not just paperwork. You may need to do further experiments, derivations, or simulations. Next one, as I mentioned, the language is very important. You can take the help of any English expert or anyone. So scientific languages or tenses. Present tense for known fact and hypothesis. The average life of a honeybee is 6 weeks. So which tense you can use at which part? Past tense for experiments you have conducted. Past tense when you describe the results of an experiment. So what are the tense you will use that you need to remember to present your result properly? Now conclusions. So it tells how your work advances in the field from the present state of knowledge. So the path you need to mention briefly in the conclusion part. Without clear conclusion, reviewers and readers will find it difficult to judge the work and whether or not it merits publication in the journal. So proper or sound conclusion is also necessary to accept a good paper in a good journal. Do not repeat the abstract. Sometimes what people can do, simply the same thing, only rephrase the abstract and write the same thing again and again. Or just the list of experiment results. Don't do this. Trivial statements of your results are unacceptable in these sections. So no result directly, this is 95% accurate. These things you can discuss in the discussion section or result section, but don't mention it directly in the conclusion part. Conclusion part, you need to mention something so that this was your path. You have started from this point and you have reached to that point. So what are the steps you have followed? And it provides a clear scientific justification for your work and indicate possible applications and extension. You should also suggest future experiments or future work which are underway. So it is not necessary that this future work should be done by you only. Anyone can do this, and it is your success if someone get the interest to do your work as a future, to do your future work as their work. So you can convince them so that they are interested to work in your domain or in your work. And acknowledgement, obviously, you can give if you want to recognize those who helped in this research, mainly advisor. If you have any financial funding, normally the projects, if you have any fund, you can mention this funding agency. Proofreaders, if you have typists, if you have taken help of any typist, suppliers who have given you the materials. So these things you can mention in the acknowledgements part, but not make it too lengthy. Do not make the acknowledgement part too lengthy. Now, if we come to the references, most of the mistakes are found in the references. So what is the thing? As I mentioned that someone have done this, just copy it from the other paper's reference. Don't do this. And also you need to follow which style this journal wants. And cite the main scientific publication on which your work is based so that you can properly cite your work in citation you can do. Otherwise, if you have mentioned anything, you cannot do the proper citation within your work. Do not inflate the manuscript with too many references. It does not make it a better manuscript. And avoid excessive self-citation. And avoid excessive citation of publication from the same region. That means same journal or same region, same conference. Don't do this. And as I mentioned, reviewers always prefer if you can use the latest publication as the reference. And for the journal, you can prepare the cover letter. So this letter, this is also very important for the good publishers. This is your chance to speak to the editors directly. So why did you submit the manuscript to this journal? Here, do not summarize your manuscript or repeat the abstract. Mention what would make your manuscript special for this journal. Mention special requirements like this if you do not wish your manuscript to be reviewed by certain reviewers, and any conflict of interest if you have. Most of the editors will not reject a manuscript only because the cover letter is bad. But a good cover letter may accelerate the editorial process of your paper. So they may get the interest, you may convince the reviewers. So good cover letter for good journal is also very much required. So this is the possibility. You can sell your work. And you can also suggest potential reviewers. This is not necessary that whatever you have suggested, they will include these reviewers only. They obviously select reviewers from their side. But if you select the reviewers, if you can send the reviewers list, it will be easier for them to search the reviewers or select the reviewers. So your suggestions will help the editor to move your manuscript to the review stage more efficiently. You can easily find potential reviewers and their contact details from the articles in your specific subject area or your references. And the reviewers should represent at least 2 regions of the world. And they should not be your supervisor or close friends. So biasness will come. So suppose 2 reviewers you have selected from India. So without doing this, if you can select it, one from India and one from the outside, then it will be better. So be prepared to suggest 3 to 6 potential reviewers according to the requirement. Sometimes they may ask for the 3 reviewers. So you can give the name of 3 reviewers from different domains, but who have the domain knowledge, who are the expert of this domain. This reviewer's name you can suggest. So revision before the submission. What are the reasons for early rejection? Paper is of limited interest or covers local issues only. So if it is a local issue, if you are focusing on local issue, it is very difficult sometimes, not always. If you can present it well, then it may be accepted. But normally, if you want to publish it in any international journal or international publisher, they are not very much interested for your local problem. Suppose you're focusing on a particular problem in your area or in your state. So this is one thing. So because it has a limited audience, because suppose you are you want to write a book, first they will ask you a question, who will be your audience. So suppose your audience is very limited, so why they will give you the chance to write the book? Because they will not get any benefit from it. They will not make the profit from this small size audience. So these are the few things this affect the publication also. And paper is a routine application of well-known methods. So this is already known. What is the utility of publishing this one? Paper present an incremental advance or limited in scope. So suppose work in progress. Obviously, work in progress also can be published, but that should be like this, or some conferences may be interested to publish work in progress. But otherwise, for the journal, if you publish the work in progress, they normally not want to publish it. And novelty and significance are not immediately evident or sufficiently well justified, because justification is very much important for this. So what should you check before submission? Is your work of interest to an international audience? Does the work add significant value to an existing method? Is the perspective consistent with the journal? Are the right conclusions drawn from the results? Does your work add to the existing body of knowledge? Just because it has not been done before is no justification for doing it now. And just because you have done the study does not mean this is very important. So that you need to remember before submitting your paper. So reasons for early rejection analysis based on the preparation, failure to meet submission requirements. So you need to clearly go through the requirements by the conferences or books or the journals. Incomplete coverage of literature. Unacceptably poor English. That is another case. And incomplete coverage of literature means suppose you have mentioned some material, some articles 5 years back. So they have a common question. In the last 5 years, is there any work or not? Whether there is any work or not. So that you need to know. That's why it is very important to include the latest study also. And what should you check here? Read the guide for authors again. Check your manuscript point by point. And make sure every aspect of the manuscript is in accordance with the guidelines. Like word count, layout, illustration, format, whatever they asked accordingly, it will be fulfilled. And that's why it is very much required that when you will follow these guidelines for a particular journal, this may not match the requirements of another journal. So do not submit the same manuscript at the same time to multiple publishers, because you are following a particular format. Accordingly, you need to submit the paper. Are there too many self-citations or references that are difficult for the international reader to access? So that is also one point. Did the first readers of your manuscript easily grasp the essence? Correct all the grammatical and spelling mistakes. So these are the things you need to consider before submission of your paper. And reviewing is a procedure. So consider reviewing as a procedure in which several peers discuss your work and learn from their comments and join the discussion. And mainly the thing is that sometimes, suppose what happens, that your paper may be rejected, but reviewers give you very good comments. So these you can apply to improve your manuscript, and next time you can submit it to another good journal. Because criticism is also very important for the success. That's why take this type of suggestions and improve your manuscript. And nearly every manuscript requires revision. That's why normally for good journal, there are 2 steps of review, 2 stages of reviews. So accordingly, you need to resubmit your work. Bear in mind that editors and reviewers mean to help you improve your article. Do not take it offense. So do not take it personally. Whatever they mention, do not take it personally. This is only for, just think that this is only for your self-improvement. Accordingly, you can improve your article. And minor revisions does not guarantee acceptance after revision. And do not count on acceptance, but address all comments carefully. So if it has been accepted also, just follow the steps, follow the guidelines, whatever they suggested. Accordingly, you can improve your present manuscript as well as you can apply it for your future manuscript. Revise the whole manuscript, not just the parts of the reviewers point out. So before resubmission, you need to revise the whole manuscript again. Now, revision after submission. Carefully study the comments and prepare a detailed letter of response, because this is also very important for good journal. So whether you have followed all the instructions, and accordingly you need to, suppose you think that this statement, this suggestion, you cannot incorporate, that also you need to mention, and you need to give your view against this suggestion, that you think that this is correct in this phase. So there is no requirement of modification. So you can directly mention this one also. So prepare a detailed letter of response towards the reviewer against the reviewer comments. Do not resubmit elsewhere without revision. So never treat publication as a lottery by resubmitting a rejected manuscript directly to another journal without any significant revision. It will not save any of your time and energy. And the original reviewers, even the editors, may eventually find it, which can lead to animosity towards the author. So it is very much, it is not encouraged. So that's why you need to avoid this one. A possible strategy: in your cover letter, declare the paper was rejected and name of the journal. Include the referee's report and a detailed letter of response showing how each comment has been addressed. Explain why you are resubmitting the paper to this journal. This journal is a more appropriate journal. The manuscript has been improved as a result of its previous review. So if you want to resubmit your paper to any other journal after revision, so you need to revise your paper according to the previous journal's comments, and then you can clearly mention in your cover letter so that it can be resubmitted to your another journal. And important things to remember: preparation is important, but do not spend too much time on your preparation. You need to do it parallelly. Submit to the right journal. You need to think about the scope and the impact of this journal. Submit to one journal at a time. Check the English. Pay attention to the structure and pay attention to the journal requirements. Now, when you will publish, you need to also follow the publication ethics. That is also very important. So publish and perish if you break ethical rules. International scientific ethics have evolved over centuries and are commonly held throughout the world. So whatever you will do, most of the important thing you need to know that there is a plagiarism, you know. So whatever you need to do, you need to publish it ethically. You cannot do anything that is unethical. So scientific ethics are not considered to have national variants or characteristics. There is a single ethical standards for science. And ethics problems are scientific articles are on the rise globally. So you can see one people can publish 20 papers within a very few within a limited period, within a short period. So just check the quality. Yes, sometimes some exceptionals are there, they can publish. But otherwise, in normal cases, it's not possible. So whatever you will publish, that should be the ethical one. Don't publish in any case unethically. And ethic issues in publishing, one thing is scientific misconduct. It is just like a crime, falsification of results. So you have taken one result, just you have changed the data. Data means only the numbers. And you have mentioned that this is my result. So this is one scientific misconduct. Publication misconduct includes plagiarism. These are of different types. I'm not going through the details of the plagiarism. And also self-plagiarism is not encouraged because there are the copyright issues. So plagiarism, different forms of severities are there. The paper must be the original to the authors. Sometimes what people can do, they have copied the materials from other literature and then take the help of paraphrasing and do the things. So the structure of the sentence will be changed. This is also not encouraged. So duplicate submission is also not encouraged. Duplicate publication is not encouraged. Lack of acknowledgement of prior research and researchers. That is also not encouraged. Inappropriate identification of all co-authors and conflict of interest. So when you prepare your manuscript, you need to follow these issues. You need to remember these issues, these ethical issues before publishing your work. So this is the plagiarism, a shortcut to long-term consequences, because whatever you have done for a single manuscript, you may suffer later. So plagiarism is considered as a serious offense by your institute, by you, by journal editors, and by the scientific community. And this is actually a crime for the academicians. Plagiarism may result in academic charges, but will certainly cause rejection of your paper. And it will hurt your reputation in the scientific community. So in any case, you need to avoid this plagiarism. And multiple submissions are also avoided. So do not send your manuscript to a second journal until you receive the final decision of the first journal. So that is also very important. You need to wait. You need to give the time for getting the response from the reviewers. Duplicate publication is also not encouraged. 2 or more papers without full cross-reference share the same hypothesis, data, discussion points, or conclusion. It is not encouraged. An author should not submit for consideration in another journal a previously published paper. As I mentioned already, that algorithms we have published already in one journal or one book, and same thing you have again published. You want to publish in your new manuscript. So published studies do not need to be repeated unless further confirmation is required. Yes, obviously, if you want to improve something, you can mention that. Otherwise, you can simply give the reference and just summarize the result. Previous publication of an abstract during the proceeding of conferences does not preclude subsequent submission for publication, but full disclosure should be made at the time of submission. And republication of a paper in another language is acceptable, provided that there is full and prominent disclosure of its original source. Yes, obviously, if you have one book in English, now you want to make it in Hindi, you can do so, but in that case, you need to mention the source of this book clearly at the time of submission. And at the time of submission, authors should disclose details of related papers, even if it in the different language and similar papers in press. Sometimes you can also mention it in press. You have suggested something or mentioned some papers which are in press that you can also mention. So main advice for this manuscript writing is find out what is trending, what is going around around you. Find the trends of the subject area for your domain, what is going on. You can find the journals, authors, publications per year. Evaluate which journal is right for your article. Its impact factor. So different rankings are there, age indexing, and from this you can find out the best journal for you. And find out more about the journals, who are the editors, who are the guest editors, what are the guidelines for the authors. All the things you can search before going for the manuscript submission. Your paper is worthless if no one reads, uses, or cites it. So a research study is meaningful only if it is clearly described so that someone else can use it in his or her studies. That is the success of your work. It arouses other scientists' interest allows others to reproduce the result. That means your future work can be carried out by others. By submitting a manuscript, you are basically trying to sell your work to your community. That you need to remember before writing your manuscript. Now, one thing again, you can mention, check that is this a prestigious journal? So again, impact factor is one issue. So already I mentioned this impact factor, how it has been calculated. Accordingly, you can check the impact factor of your journal. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. If anyone has any question, you are free to ask, or else you can just contact to us for the any questions. We'll try to provide the answer by Dr. Tablina, ma'am. If you have any question, please ask. Okay, I guess there isn't any question because it has a descriptive and a long explanation, I must say, and I must thankful to Dr. Taplina for this brief explanation on the particular topic. Let me tell you all the participants that this complete session will be available on our Research Circle YouTube channel. So if you have missed something, or if you want to watch it again, or if you want to share to somebody else, you can just go to Research Circle YouTube channel and you can find this complete session there. Any questions again? Okay, I can see the thumbs up only. Okay, so thank you so much all the participants who were live from Research Circle app, YouTube live and Facebook live. And last but not the least, thank you so much Dr. Taplina ma'am for taking out the time and delivering a session for us. We really appreciate that, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot. This is a nice session.
Thank you.